Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please continue eating, but we are going to get this lunch with the Genius started. And of course, this is spring break, so happy spring break to everybody. I know we have several people online watching this as well. Cliff Smart is not with us. Cliff and Zora Mulligan, our executive vice president, and I think John Kaczynski, our provost, they're all traveling to Jefferson City. And we've got a couple meetings at council on public higher education, and then tomorrow's the coordinating board for higher education. So Cliff sends his greetings and says hello to everyone. And so I'll give just a quick update, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Church to talk a little bit about the School of Accountancy, which is a good month to talk about that, or we could do it in April, I guess, but we'll do it now. Of course, this is spring break, so it's a little quiet on campus, but certainly not in terms of getting ready for what's happening in the rest of the semester. And then on the alumni development side, it's been sort of busy. It just got back from New York City. We had an alumni event Monday night in Times Square, and it was a little cool and rainy, but we had close to 100 alums show up. And our theater group, a lot of theater students currently, usually seniors, go up to New York City and spend time with some of our alums that work in the industry. And they were invited to this alumni event, but I gotta tell you, we had a lot of business folks that live in New York City. And Dr. Reagan, I tell you, we had one student, and I should have told you this earlier, that's so proud. No, this is a good thing. I'll tell you all the bad things later. But we had a student that came in, and I said, well, where are you from? It was New Jersey. And I said, no, are you from Missouri? I know you live in New Jersey. He goes, no, I'm from New Jersey. He got his MBA online. And he works for, and I forgot the name of the company. He was so proud. He just graduated in December. And I said, well, so you've been on campus much? He goes, no, I came to commencement. He was so proud of his online degree. He goes, I had to go to my first alumni event. And luckily he was there, and he just had great things to say about Missouri State and the MBA program. I said, well, how did you pick us? There's other institutions around New Jersey and around the world. How did you get to us? And he said he wanted to find an institution in the Midwest, but he said the staff was so friendly and helpful, minus Dr. Reagan. But he was so pleased, so I'll pass that along. But so we had a whole variety of alums in New York City. And then tomorrow night, we're in Los Angeles with another alumni event. And then another group of acting students are going to be in Los Angeles. They're actually going to be visiting with John Goodman. John is taping, I think, his final episode of Connors. And so I know the students are going to visit with him as well. So even though it's spring break, there's a lot of fun things happening. I know if Cliff was here, he would tell you some good news about enrollment for the fall, although it's a ways off. But all the indicators for enrollment, housing, contracts, admissions, admitted, and then applications, and there's a bunch of other types of variables, but all those are looking very, very strong for the fall. And hopefully this trend, and I think it's in 2025 when the demographics really change in the Midwest, where there's a lot more 18-year-olds. And so there's some good things there. And of course, the legislature's meeting, there's a lot of things going on in Jefferson City, and the budgets will be, next month is a really critical month for us in terms of getting the state budget approved. Then after that, then everything is figured out. The Board of Governors will look at a proposed budget at the May meeting, and then by then the legislature is over, and then the approval of budget is in the June meeting. And then on the academic front, I know we would say there's a lot of things that are going on there, which is true. And you heard of the transformational plan and certainly the forming of the two colleges, the College of Humanities and Public Affairs and the College of Arts and Letters. And so it is now called the Judith M. Reynolds College of Arts and Humanities. And so that name officially goes into place July 1. And then there's discussions throughout this next year after that in figuring out which departments go where. And there could be some formations of several departments into one, but those discussions will take place for a full year. So a lot of good things that are happening, but a lot of great things are happening in the College of Business, which is our largest college at the university. And so today we're going to talk about taxes and a little bit more about the person. But to give you an update and an introduction, we're going to call on Kimberly Swanson Church, who is the director of the School of Accountancy, to give you a quick update and an introduction. So why don't you come on up forward?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome during spring break. I did just get in last night from Florida, and so the good news is the weather took a turn, so it's now like 60 today, so we're in great shape here in Missouri. So it was not a huge sacrifice to leave the beach yesterday, but so I squeezed in a small spring break before returning back. It is a very exciting time to be in the College of Business and especially in the School of Accountancy. Thanks to the support of the Dean's office, we have been able to integrate a lot of technology in the program. So we'll be opening up a dedicated accounting computer lab this fall that helps us when we are competing with geographically the University of Arkansas and Mizzou. So this gives us a leg up in that competition by having dedicated resources just for our students so we can integrate more of the technology that mirrors what the professor is doing. And so we're very excited by the changes that have happened. There's a new CPA exam that will be starting in 2024. And because of the work of the award-winning faculty that are as a part of the SOA, we are already ahead of other schools in the region on having that curriculum updated. And we are the only school in the United States that has an educator both on the front end of the CPA exam changes by being at parts of the task forces to implement new exam content, all the way bookended to having faculty that are actually on the exam writing team. So when we say we have our students ready for the future of the accounting profession, we mean it. And that also gives us a competitive advantage when students are coming here when they've been to those other regional schools. So we hope that begins to reflect in our future enrollments, and become future alum. But really what we're here today is to honor a colleague in the School of Accountancy, an award-winning educator who really honestly began her career at Missouri State as the outstanding graduate of 1993. And has now bookended that award as the outstanding educator awarded at a state level by the Missouri Society of CPAs. And so she won that award last fall, and we went to Arrowhead for a wonderful behind the scenes tour and got our pictures taken with Patrick Mahomes longer. So that was fantastic. And that's the Super Bowl ring. So thank you, Kerri, for winning that award. So we could go to Arrowhead for the behind the scenes tour, which was wonderful to get to share with Kerri when we were in Kansas City last fall. But not only is Kerri an award-winning student followed by educator, she's also a well sought out thought leader, both in education and in research. So she's won awards for her teaching innovations in the classroom, as well as her research as far as practice is concerned. So she does more than just 1040s. So she has an extensive knowledge that often is requested. You've seen her on Springfield News giving tax updates over the years. You've probably seen her involved in a VITA clinic. So although she's finishing her 17th year here on the faculty, she sought a federal grant to run a volunteer income tax assistance program for lower income families in the city of Springfield. And that was supplemented by a federal grant. So she gives back to her community. So she doesn't just use her tax knowledge for evil. I guess she uses it for good too. And many of us that have tax degrees will tell you we often have tax degrees because we want to help the taxpayer against the IRS. We typically are not fans of the IRS. So it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce both a colleague and a friend, and for you to get to share the afternoon with someone as delightful as Kerri as I get to all week when we're in the College of Business. So I would like to introduce Dr. Kerri Tassin, as an alum and a professor that Missouri State can be very proud of.
Sweet, come on up here, have a seat. So the first question, tell us about Patrick Mahomes' locker.
Get out before then, so, yeah.
And you saw it,
Yes.
so that's the only reason she went. That's not to see Patrick Mahomes' locker. So are you a Chiefs fan?
Yes, my husband is a Super Chiefs fan, yes.
But you know who Patrick Mahomes
I
is?
do.
Oh, yeah. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, we're gonna start showing some pictures first off. Because this is a lunch with the genius, and we're gonna get into your genius stuff. But we want to know more about you, Kerri. So this is you, and how old are you here?
I think I'm 9. I mean, this goes.
You can understand.
No, I think I'm 9 there. So I think that would be 3rd or 4th grade, I believe.
And where did you go to school?
In several different places, but because my dad was a federal law enforcement officer, so we traveled the US. But I did early grade school in Republic.
Oh, really? Good. So in elementary, and of course, you know, when I think back to elementary, you always remember the students that were really good at this or art. So, and you got to be honest, was math your jam
It
then?
was.
It was. So
Oh, yeah.
you love numbers.
Yes, I started as a math major in college at Indiana State University. Decided I didn't want to teach it, and so I made the shift to accounting, but even that early, math was my thing.
So did you know at that age, I want to be an accountant?
No.
Okay,
No.
no. Did you want to be a teacher?
I thought, you know, at that age, I'm trying to remember, because camping and fishing were really important to me at that age, but, so I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher till I thought I wanted to teach math at Indiana State University. But I became a full charge bookkeeper to pay my way through school. And that's when I realized that worked for my brain real well. And so I shifted into accounting.
So you were born where?
I was born in a suburb of Chicago, Illinois. That's home for me.
Okay, let's go to the next picture. Let's see what this one is. Oh,
So
yeah.
So the braces had just come off right there.
Awesome.
So that was a happy time. Yeah, I think that was, somebody said high school. I think that was probably early
And high school was where?
That was Terre Haute, Indiana.
Terre Haute. And how long were you in Terre Haute?
I lived in Terre Haute for 8 years. So that's where I started college at Indiana State University. Go Sycamores.
Yeah, you can't say that. All right, well, this is your last year teaching here, so let's go to the next picture. We're gonna get more into, there you are,
Yeah.
graduation.
Yes, and that's Missouri State University. That's my undergrad degree. So that's my first little folder, waiting for its little diploma.
So how did you get from Indiana State to here?
So let's see, I mean, that was by way of Florida. So, yeah, went from Indiana, moved with my folks down to Florida. I stayed in Florida for about 5 years. My folks had left, and I had family that retired in this area, and I wanted to be with them. And so I made the transfer back to this area. Always loved this area. hated leaving it when I was a child living in Republic.
But Florida was nice, though.
It's okay.
Good,
Yeah,
good for you.
this is my place.
Okay, let's go to the next pick here.
So that's my husband, Stephen, and I think he'd be okay with me telling you this was some years ago on his 50th birthday, and that's at our home. I am a twin.
Yeah.
So that's me on the left, that's my sister Kelly on the right. So yeah, that's at a church in Willard. She and I just live about 3/4 of a mile apart from each other.
So growing up, did people get you guys confused?
All the time.
Yeah.
And while we are close, we are very different.
Yeah.
And our talents are different. If somebody told my sister she had to do anything related to math or accounting, she would cry. So, and she is over at OTC. She's an administrator at OTC.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's go to the next pick here.
So I love to cook, and that's me in my kitchen. I've been cooking Thanksgiving for my family for close to 30 years.
Yeah, good. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I'm in charge of, well, just about everything. But
As an accountant, usually.
probably the pies, probably my favorite, yeah.
And you brought some for all of you?
Well, this cake is lovely on the table.
Yeah, okay. Next pick there.
So, yeah, Christmas, my mom and my sister, and that's my nephew photobombing us in the background here at my sister's house.
So
Yeah,
does all your family, do they come to you for tax advice and you do all their taxes?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You charge them? No, I won't ask. No,
No, but I collect on those favors later on.
yeah, there you go. So you know how you got to Missouri State, and so did you have a plan from the beginning that this is the route when you got here you wanted to teach, or you wanted to be a practitioner, you wanted to do both, or did you have it all set out for you?
No, I didn't. And that sounds a little careless again, but as a young person, I was like so many of our students trying to figure out what worked for me, what I wanted to do when I grow up. And so I was not going to go into public accounting. So when I graduated, I went straight into public accounting. And I did that for several years, as a matter of fact. And then several years in, still enjoying that career, but feeling like I needed a new purpose. I was in charge of mentoring and training for new young staff in our CPA firms. And I thought, you know what, I think I would like to do this full time. So thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to school, see if I can make something happen there. And I was incredibly blessed that I was able to do that.
So tell us about your experience here as a student. What was that like, and maybe compare it to what it was at Indiana State?
So
Now, if it was, well, let me stop you at some point there, but I'm curious as to that.
well, Indiana State, so I'm gonna date myself again. I started there when we were registering with punch cards. We would stand in line, and you collect your punch card, and you would hopefully get the class when you wanted. It was a frightening time. My sister and I are the first women on either side of our families to go to college, so we really didn't have family background and that kind of support. So we were kind of paving our own paths. My sister went one direction, I went in another, and so it was scary. We were both working, trying to get ourselves through school. So I did something silly. I took 18 credit hours my first semester as a freshman. I was working 36 hours a week at work. I see some of you gasping, yeah. And then I did okay. I survived, but I was hating life. I did 19 hours the second semester, still working like I was, and I needed to take a bit of a break. Moved down to Florida, took some classes at Tallahassee Community College, came back to Missouri State, and decided, went to work here in the Ozarks as a full charge bookkeeper. And came back to Missouri State. And by then, Missouri State knew me as Mr. Kerri Viewer. And so we had to get that fixed. But it was a wonderful, wonderful, supportive experience. I was, my professors saw potential in me that I did not know that I had. And they encouraged me by writing a note on an exam, you need to think about going into accounting. By the way, I'm an attorney too. And I had one teacher, Alice Barty, who put on a lot of you know that name, who put on an exam. Wow, you really need to consider law school. And those encouragements meant the world to me. Those were a long, long time ago, but I still remember those things. So Missouri State then honored me in the summer of '93 with that top graduate. I was sitting in class one day, and if I'm talking too much, just tell me, okay.
We're learning stuff. I didn't know about the law degree part. You gotta tell me.
So I'm sitting in class, I'm finishing up my undergrad degree, and a gentleman interrupts the class and looks at me and says, you are wanted in Craig Hall as soon as you're done here.
Usually not a good thing. Usually not a good thing.
I thought, family, did something happen? Are they gonna tell, is a police officer gonna tell me, well, your mom and dad, or whatever, So anyway, I get over there and I'm shaking, I'm almost crying. And they said, we would like to honor you as top graduate of the graduating class this summer. And we would like for you to give a speech. I almost passed out. It was like this through astronomy, just, what are they gonna say? So anyway, this institution has, it really changed my life. This was a long time ago. It has continued to change my life, and it's continued to be such an important institution that I am so grateful to be able to get back to.
You got a lot of good awards, but tell us the teaching part. Tell us your experience with that and how important that part is.
That is the most important part for me personally. I came to Missouri State and hired on as faculty in January of 2007 because I wanted to teach, because I enjoyed hopefully doing for the students in my class what the professors had done for me when I was here at Missouri State. And that continues to be the most important part of the job for me. I'm busy on research this week, and I'm working with my colleagues. Hello over there. Don't mean to exclude folks behind the post. And busy with colleagues on research right now, and I'm enjoying that enormously. But I came to Missouri State to teach.
So tell us about the clinic and how did that start in your role?
So the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Clinic started decades ago with a prior professor. And then Dr. Sandra Bird took that over upon that professor's retirement. And her husband, Dr. David Bird, was a professor in a class that I took in my master's program. And so they thought, and I was already a CPA at that point. I'd done approximately 3 million tax returns at that point. So they thought, wouldn't it be great if we could get her on board and get her involved in that program? So for the next 13 or so years, I was involved in teaching a class that was connected to that program. Katie was in that class and in that program. And we had clinics here in Springfield, Missouri. We had a huge clinic in the glass hall for many of those years when we prepared tax returns for free for our low and middle income taxpayers.
So tell us, what do you get out of that in terms of you're helping people, but the emotional part? I'm sure you have all kinds of stories
From the clinics.
From the clinics, but tell us your experience.
So it definitely presented some challenges, but there were also times when we knew we had provided a critical service, particularly to somebody going through an incredibly difficult time. I can remember one lady, whose husband had just recently passed away. And, he had been in charge of the tax returns, the bills, all the finances and that kind of thing. And she's got tears coming down her face and she's saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this. And can you all help me? And so I had a wonderful, kind student who sat down and helped her. And the tears continued to come down, this time because of the relief and the gratitude. She said, I don't know what else I would have done. I have no idea what I would have done. So thank you so much. And for some of these folks, it might be a refund. Our car is no longer working, or our refrigerator just finally gave up the ghost, and this refund is going to allow us to get to our jobs. It's going to allow us to get some groceries. We're going to get that refrigerator from Best Buy today, and we are going to load it up. Thank you so much.
And all this started before we were a statewide public affairs mission. This is truly a great feather in the cap for public affairs. So when is that, Clint?
Well, what I am doing now is working with community partners, actually with Community Partnership of the Ozarks. They are now serving as our site coordinators. And I have had to move into some other teaching responsibilities with some changes that took place with a little thing called COVID. And so I'm actively recruiting students to participate in those clinics now.
So how do you keep up? And do you like to keep up? I guess you do keep up. But do you enjoy reading all the tax law changes and all the regs related to that? You gotta be honest.
So, you know, there's wonderful services out there where we can get a good idea of what the tax law changes are. And now from time to time, do I need to go to the code and the regs in order to kind of confirm what I'm reading or what have you? Yes. And it's one of those things that when I was in public accounting right away, it just worked for my brain. So this is going to annoy some people, but it's not that big a deal to me. Yeah.
I love reading that. So, but you're
I am.
so tell us about law school. Where'd you go to law school, and how did that come about?
So I was here at Missouri State University teaching, and we had the volunteer income tax assistance clinics, but we also had a low income tax clinic, which was funded by a federal grant, where we supported folks who'd gotten in a little crosswise with the IRS. Most of those clinics throughout the United States at universities are supervised by attorneys. So Dr. Sandra Bird in particular said, hey, why don't you go get a law degree? So I went and did that, and went to University of Tulsa and got my law degree and a master's in taxation joint degree program, and came back and was able to represent those clients with a little bit of better support.
So, I know how long it took me to get my bachelor's here. I won't get into that. How long did it take you to get all that done?
So the master's in tax, I was able to start here for a year while I was still teaching at Missouri State. Then to finish the joint degree program, I went full-time plus with an educational leave for 2 years, and then came back.
Wow, that's very, very impressive. So as you visit with students, man, there's a shortage of accountants, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, why is that?
Oh, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Yeah, because we're starting to see in popular press right now too, Wall Street Journal, what have you, Forbes, that the CPA firms are also struggling to recruit at this point in time. But I think what we're also seeing is that there's a little bit of a steer away from the technical degrees. Engineering is struggling right now, the sciences, the math departments and that kind of thing. And accounting is definitely a technical degree. And maybe too, we need to work on our image a little bit.
How so?
Maybe
accountants like to have a good time, right?
what we do,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, it's like
I've seen some accountants have really good.
Yeah.
But Well, I found an article here recently that had a cartoon of a guy that, you know, looks like he's lived a little bit on the wild side, but he's doing somebody's tax return. And I don't know that we all need to do quite that extreme. I'm not getting a mohawk, but I think maybe we need to show a more human side. And I think the profession's done a much better job in making room for folks who want to have families, who want to take a vacation once in a while, who you know, want to support maybe some aging parents or what have you, whatever stage of life they're in. I think they're doing a much better job of that.
So I know being an accountant, I mean, especially if you're doing the income side, income tax side, you're real busy during this season. But are you finding it where the time that you have to devote is getting to be more and more difficult for people that they want to do, or is it something else?
So I'm not sure. I follow.
So is it, and I think you sort of touched on, are students having, they don't want to devote as much time to that profession, working long hours. And that's when you think of tax accountants, I mean, they can't wait till April 15th
Right.
when you can do stuff.
Exactly. Unless the IRS extends that deadline like they did a couple of years in a row, and it felt like it never ended. And I think students, what they probably want is a choice. Some of them are saying, yes, the money's important. I need to be able to support my family and that kind of thing. But let me decide how much I need, and therefore let me decide how many hours I need to put in order to achieve those goals. Maybe I'm not going to be your 80-hour-a-week person. Maybe I don't need. Maybe my coworker here is looking forward to that lake home, but maybe that's not something I'm interested. Maybe that's not a priority for me. Maybe more time at home is a priority for me. So I think having choice is so important.
So Katie was one of your students? Yeah?
Katie was.
Katie,
yes.
come on up. We're going to put you on the hot seat. We always like to have a student to share his or her experience. Katie Folk is with KPM. So Katie, tell us what you do at KPM.
It's a warm seat.
Yes, it is. Yeah, you bet.
So sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, you're just worried about one seat. Tell us what you do at KPM.
Katie Bolt from KPM. I worked there for almost 8 years now, plus an internship. And I'm in the tax department, but I also did recruiting and retention for the firm as well.
So what was it like to have Kerri's class?
Oh, it was wonderful. When I think back about my experience at MSU, I always am met with vivid memories of Dr. Tassin's class, the VITA clinic, you know, all the students. That was such a special time. You know, we really learned a lot. We were inspired by her. For the very first time I met her, I had gone to, in 2013, scheduled a meeting with her to talk about taking a few accounting classes. I was in banking and I wanted to advance my career. I didn't really think accounting was for me at all. But by the end of the meeting, she had me convinced to enroll in the MAC program. So that was quite a thing. And she corrected some of my misguided perceptions about the profession. You know, I was type A. I thought I'm not meant for this. I'm not cut out for it. So she helped me there. And then also helped me start looking for a grad assistantship to make the whole thing happen. So it was really life-changing for me.
And you helped in the clinic?
I did.
And tell us your experience with that.
You know, it was really overwhelming, and she tried to prepare us as much as she could, saying, you're going to see a lot of people in here. It's going to feel a bit chaotic, and wow. You know, the amount of folks that are reached by that clinic was really astounding to me. The true need that was there, I felt so fulfilled in volunteering for it, and the bonus was we got class credit for it as well. Just getting a taste of what the profession is like with a very specific group of people, it was just super fulfilling. And guided by her, we could always go to her with our questions, and she was ready with an answer.
So your perception of the future of accounting and attracting the people to that profession, what do you think are keys for that?
I think we've got some work to do. Dr. Tassin hit on some very valid points. We have to change our image and let people know, just like she did with me in our very first meeting, that it really is a career for a lot of different personality types. There's a place for everybody, whether you're in public accounting, private accounting, whether you're teaching it. So we do have some work in that regard. I think a lot of headway has been made in reducing the hours that are required in public accounting. I think that we realize that people need that balance, and we need to be able to cater to men and women alike that want to have families and they want to be home, and have a place for folks who want to shoot for the stars with their careers and land in the shareholder partner position, where they're making those big changes in their life, and the lake home is important to them, or anything, if they've got the time for that, if it fits with their lifestyle and what their goals and aspirations are. So I think a lot has been done. I think we have a lot to do in connecting with and reaching people. And I hope that we will continue to see work in that area.
Did you always want to go into this profession?
No, I really thought, when I heard accountant, I thought type B, introvert personality. And when I said that to Dr. Tassin, she said, "Oh no, I'll never forget that." And I was like, wow. And just, not everybody really has the luxury of getting that little push or having the knowledge that they're capable of something. And just like Dr. Tassin said, it's so life-changing to hear that from somebody, to give you that confidence and give you that little boost that you need. It was like I said, life-changing for me. And so, but here I am 8 years later in a very fulfilling and satisfying career. And I have Dr. Tassin to thank for that.
That's great. And then you can influence others as you get on the road.
I hope so.
Thanks. We're going to pass the mic down to Kerri, and you can stay up here because this could be fun. And now before we get into the questions, we're going to go to the lightning round. And before we do that, if you weren't going into this profession, what would you be doing?
I probably would have been a math teacher.
Those are hard.
Yeah.
So that was it. Okay, lightning round, whatever comes to your mind. And just shout it out. Favorite spot on campus?
Oh, the fountain.
Oh, good. Early morning person or late night owl?
My colleagues know early morning, definitely.
What time do you get in?
Well, I will be in my office and working sometimes at 6 a.m., sometimes at 7.
So do you sleep at all? Do you like to sleep?
Oh, I go to bed early.
Yeah, good. Favorite color?
Purple.
I thought it'd be green, but okay.
Of course.
You didn't say maroon. You didn't say blue either, so that's good. Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Good. Summer or winter?
This is going to be unpopular. Winter.
Yes, it is very. Why winter?
Because don't have to worry so much about the outdoor yard work and stuff like that. And I love being in around the wood stove and baking and doing things.
Okay, that's no wrong answer. You're good. Favorite restaurant in Springfield?
Nicola's.
Good one. The best vacation I ever had was in blank.
Myrtle Beach.
Ooh.
Long time ago, before Myrtle Beach was the way it is now. Yeah. Yeah.
Dessert or no dessert?
No dessert.
Ooh, that was a wrong answer.
I know.
Yeah.
I just think it's the best. I know. Pies and everyone enjoys those. Yeah, not so much me.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's the pie? When is the day of pie? Is that today?
Yesterday.
That's a whole different subject. I always think pies and that. So what's your best pie?
Best pie. My husband would say apple.
Apple. Then you don't eat the apple pie.
Very little. Yeah, I know, weird.
Okay. Well, no. You can make a bunch. Help you out. Books or movies?
Books.
Books. Fiction or nonfiction?
Oh, I am a total nerd, nonfiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tax books?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Just gonna get out of that code
Yeah.
into biographies.
Oh, good. That's
Mhm.
good. Country music or top 40 music?
Classical.
Classical music. Very good. All right, those are good. Those are good ones. Okay, now we're gonna go for questions from you all. If anybody has any questions, especially if Mayor Carlson has a question.
I thought I'd maybe just get a response to you about an experience I had years ago. In one of my earlier lives, I represented people, I was a lawyer, represented people before the IRS that were contesting their taxes. And I had one individual, he was a farmer up around Lamar, and very independent individual, and he got crossways with the IRS agent who was auditing his returns, and the guy got mad at him and disallowed every expense he had, and then said everything else was income. And as a consequence of that, the total taxes and penalties were up around $500,000. And so he came to me and he wanted to, he was getting on in years and wanted to get this wrapped up if he could in some way. So for one reason or another, and frankly, I don't recall, they brought in another individual from the IRS from Washington, DC, and we worked out, and at the end of the day, the guy owed no taxes. And the agent said he had a personality conflict with the auditor. So one thing I wanted to say, and then the other thing, I remember one time I went to some seminar and there was an ex-IRS agent who was now representing people before the IRS. And one thing he said that I've never forgotten was he said that in the government, everyone has a boss. And he said that if you have a legitimate complaint, don't accept no for an answer. Keep appealing it. I want to talk to your boss, talk to your boss. And if it's legitimate, sometimes somebody will just tell his underling to get this taken care of because he's got more important things to deal with. So those are my experiences. I just thought maybe you might want to react to that.
One of the things that I do teach my students in our Tax 1 and 2 classes, and this is not a comment assuming what your client, their demeanor, not at all, but I do strongly encourage my students to treat the IRS agents as human beings. I have seen so many times where they have been somewhat abused, if you will. And so some of them perhaps have been at it long enough that they kind of go in with their fists up a little bit. Perhaps they shouldn't, but that can be the case. And also, I think we all know that with taxes, emotions can run high. We think of it as a boring kind of technical area, but wow, emotions run high in the area of taxes. So I think it's really recommended that most folks, although most folks won't do this, but I think it's recommended most folks get representation and kind of get that another party in between them and that agent so that we don't have the potential for the emotions to run high and for people to develop agendas consequently.
Yes.
Could you say something about what kind of research that you do or do?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, what, and it took us a while. That's such a good question because it took us a while to be recognized as a legitimate discipline. But we've got research in several areas. And it might be accounting standards. That's not my area. For me, it's typically in tax policy. So I will research congressional, original congressional intent related to certain tax provisions, and I may make some recommendations for what I see as maybe are some improvements. I also do research in other areas of legal liability, particularly as it applies to accountants and tax preparers.
My question might sound a lot, but it seems like almost every year with our Missouri taxes,
They want another $32.19, well, not, another $32, so I just write a check, but every year I think, I don't even understand this, why they say that. We have somebody do ours, but it seems like every year we get a small bill from them. I don't quite really understand that. I don't know why. Now, if they say they wanted $1,000 or something, but it's always less than $100.
And just don't pay it. I'm not into accounting, but I'm just, is that wrong, Katie?
Yeah, and, all and this is not knowing any of those circumstances at all, and I always warn my students, don't give advice until you have all the information. And it could,
I'm not looking for advice. I just
Okay.
find it very strange that I always get this small bill.
yeah, and I do too, I'll be honest with you, I do too. Yeah.
Why do we get those?
It could be a function of withholding, it could, and that's what in my case is probably the fact, yeah. Here I am, I'm being a cautious attorney, can you tell?
Yes.
So just an easy question for you.
Awesome.
If you were queen for the day, you have the power. What would you change in the tax system? We've heard all kinds of things in the past about just flat 10% or things like that.
Right. And so when you dig into the research, you find out that things are just not that simple. And we've talked about trying to simplify the code for a long, long time. Unfortunately, when you start to do that, it's possible too that you start to hurt people that you don't mean to hurt. Because some of those provisions are there to take care of the folks who need to be taken care of. And so we have a progressive system in the US. And I can understand why. And I'm one of those people that can see both sides to an issue. And some folks have accused me of being wishy-washy, but I really can kind of see both sides. I think if I were to be queen for a day and be able to change anything, I did do some research several years ago. There are some provisions that I think cause married people some real heartburn. And so I did do an article that was, and it won an award actually with some policy recommendations for tax provisions as they apply to married people. Particularly those who file separately, they lose out on a lot of provisions simply because of that filing status. So I think that's probably what I would change. I know that's not an exciting answer, but the area of tax is just so complicated.
Do you have any experience helping out international students and alumni with learning how the taxes come in this country that may not?
Yes, I do. So the question is, do I have experience with international students and scholars and their tax obligations? I sure do. And once upon a time, we were able to help students in those clinics when we had those here at Missouri State University. Yes, I do have experience in that area.
What was that like?
What was that like? It was wonderful to be able to help our international students because I can't imagine what it's like to come to another country and try and figure out those obligations. So yeah, I enjoy helping our international students. They were always so grateful for that help. Yeah.
Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
One other question, one last question. Yeah, oh, you're worried about your $34. We're gonna take it off.
Third floor, we look right down to that floor.
Yes, sure.
And I don't think such a good job's been done about hours. Those people are there. There's a car, we see them, they're right there, and we get up, we're 80 or over. I'm over, my wife's 80, so I don't care what people think. Anyway, they're there all the time. There's one black pickup, I think the guy gets there about 7 in the morning, sometime last night he was there at 10 or 11 o'clock at night or something like that. And a lot of them are that way. They're just there all the time.
And it would seem that way. I will tell you that when I was in practice many years ago, there were also some really wonderful trade-offs. So for me, and I can't speak, of course, to these folks, but it might be some long hours from January 1st to April 15th, and then we got to enjoy the rest of the year. And I think these are just choices.
Yeah, they must be choices, because it's not just tax season, it's all year long.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think a lot of firms have also gone to some flexible schedules and that kind of thing
and
that
I've also
might.
noticed they get there, they're really fast people, they hop out. You know, not like the pros, not all day, but for a while. But they get to work, man, I don't know if they're excited to get to work or not, but they get to work and they hop out, and now every one of them has a backpack, and I'd still like to go over there and say, you actually take home every night your backpack, what's in that backpack? I think every one of them has a backpack.
Well, I think Forbes is a great place to work, so they probably are enthusiastic to get there, was my guess.
Well, Katie, thank you for being, it is always fun to see the ripple effect of what our professors do for students, and the students do the same, and I know you will inspire and are inspiring others as they commit to the profession, and we wish you the best at KPM. And Kerri, congratulations to you. We're so glad that you are ours and you're not at Indiana State University. You're here at Missouri State, and appreciate your public service to not only Missouri State, but to the community and your inspiration to students. And that's why you are a genius in this area. So thank you.
Thank you, Brent. So happy to be here.
Thank you all for being here. Let's give it a round of applause. And we will be back here on May 24th and going from a different subject, from taxes to music. Dr. Brad Snow will be here, who was a former Marine and got into the band gig. And so he'll talk to us about that. So thank you all for being here. Go Bears, and have a good afternoon.
Very nice, sharing the table.